Hi Ash, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good. Thanks for having me on, Ben. Really appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah, me too. Your website is looking amazing, by the way. I think I don't know if you recently kind of updated it, but the last time I looked, I feel like it looked different, but it looks amazing. Uh,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, always trying to like make little tweaks and change, like especially the homepage. But yeah, it's honestly like it kind of started out about 2.5 years ago from a Webflow theme and has evolved
yeah.
a lot since then. It's probably barely recognizable from the site that launched like in 2020.
Mm. I'm gonna have to look at Wayback Machine, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's looking really nice now. So for everyone listening, like we're gonna talk about your website, livingcozy.com. Um, would you mind just giving us like the quick like stats on it? Like when did you start it? How much traffic does it get? And if you don't mind, how much monthly income does it generate for you?
Yeah, so the site is around 2.5 years old, I believe. Probably actually coming up for 3 years. I think it was April 2020 when I first started building the site out. It was kind of summer, like July, August, when I really got serious and started publishing. So yeah, coming up for 3 years old. Last month was actually our like record traffic month. So we had 335,000 page views for the month, about 275,000 sessions.
You think?
And yeah, like the revenue wise, it's largely driven by affiliate with like a bit of display ads. So I started working with Mediavine like late last year. And that's probably like 10% of the revenue. And then the other like 90 comes from affiliate through like skim links. And we work directly with brands. There's probably about 35 brands that we work directly with on their affiliate programs across like various platforms. So yeah, like a lot of our focus is on commercial content and kind of driving traffic back to brand websites.
That's amazing. A lot of people I talk to have the other way around, like a small amount of affiliate, majority ad revenue. So like your website's all about kind of product reviews and talking about brands and like their home furniture, right? Um,
Yeah, so yeah, it started like I kind of moved. I've done a bit of work in like D2C, so like direct consumer e-commerce, and I knew there were tons of really cool home brands, and kind of launched Living Cozy as a directory initially, just for like all the home brands that were out there, mostly US, and then kind of just yeah leaned into content and SEO to grow it. But yeah, most of kind of the revenue is tied to kind of building awareness and driving traffic back to brand websites. But
mhm.
yeah, we're kind of trying to expand away from that a little bit and kind of get it a bit closer to like display ads and affiliate maybe being like 50-50 and focusing on more of the informational content, because I think like the SERPs are probably a bit less volatile for some of those keywords as well.
Interesting. I think I'll ask you about that a little bit later,
Yeah,
but yeah, that's really interesting. Um, what was it? So you said like going in, did you have like how much content were you producing? Did you know like what gave you the confidence that like this topic was going to work? Like how hard did you go at this at the beginning? You know, because I think a lot of people start off one a week and then realize they're making money and then go double down on it.
yeah, I'd love to say there was like a grand plan that like I spotted this niche and knew there was opportunity, but it really just wasn't that. It was just that I knew there was a lot of furniture and home brands out there. They were hard to find. The only way I was discovering them was essentially waiting for them to advertise to me on Instagram. And I know a lot of other people were the same. I think like a lot of e-commerce brands like massively overlook SEO.
Mhm.
And yeah, like launched the directory and then it got a bit of good feedback. Like the first couple of weeks I launched it. And at the time it was probably just like a directory of like 50 home brands. And then I was like, if I'm gonna try and grow this, like my background is in content and SEO, like I should lean on that. And yeah, I was kind of probably one a week to begin with. Like I set myself a target of just like 50 pieces of content. So I think like that's a really good way just to kind of keep going, like whatever you're doing, like whether it's a website or starting an Instagram account, an email newsletter, like I think just committing to a number gives you time for it to work. Because if you write like one or two blog posts and you're not going to see traffic, and it's very easy to give up. So yeah, in the back of my mind, it was like hit 50, see where it's at. And it probably took the best part of 2020. So like I started, launched the directory like April 2020, probably June, July, started writing content. And then it was probably December 2020 before it started generating like any like meaningful traffic where I thought like this could grow into something. I would say like the thing that kept me going was, as we'll I think get onto a little bit later, it made its first like revenue within about 6 weeks, and that was £9.37, which is
Nice.
why my kind of new company is called 937.
Oh,
But yeah, like seeing that little bit of revenue really made me realize like, I could
you're on.
generate some money here.
That's a great. I think I saw that in another interview, like that you did, that like that first £9.37 is like the first bit of kind of digital money that you makes you realize like, oh cool. Yeah, this is
Yeah, it's really like it kind of obviously like it's £9.37, like it's not gonna change the world, but it felt so nice waking up and like checking sim links and seeing that. It almost felt like better than when my salary got paid at the end of the month. So yeah, it kind of made me want to keep going and realize there was chance to do something here.
That's so cool. So by December, did you have your first 50 blog posts out? Or
Yeah, probably around that. Like if I'm honest, like content velocity like hasn't been super high across the site. Like we still only have there's like 220 blog posts. I think there's about 40 reviews, product reviews, and like maybe 30 interviews with different founders of brands that we work with. So maybe like 300 pieces of content across the whole site. But it probably was around December time that I got the first 50.
nice. Okay, so that's interesting. So what kind of, to give people an idea, like what kind of content do you produce? What's the stuff that generates traffic? And I guess you said there like we do founder interviews. What's that about? Is that for SEO? Or is that just
Yeah, so like the furniture in the home niche is like super competitive. So like there's a ton of niche sites in the space, but a lot of the search are also dominated by big players. So there's like Apartment Therapy, Architectural Digest, like Better Homes and Gardens, like tons of publishers owned by huge companies with big teams. So it's like super competitive. And like my focus was always on just like, how can we produce something that's like slightly better than what they've put out there? Because like it's me running this business. I care a lot more about every single post than someone who is just working their way through a list of 1,000 posts on behalf of a large conglomerate that they probably don't overly care about. So like my focus initially was on and still is like a big part of what we do is like product roundup. So like the best modular sofas, best sectional sofas, like they're really big competitive keywords. But the first one that really broke through was a guide to the best sofa in a box brands. So there was around like 2016 Burrow launched, and since then there's been loads of companies in the US that like ship sofas in essentially like apartment friendly boxes, so you don't have to like wrestle a fully made sofa around your house to get it into the living room. And like that was a fairly low competition keyword, but obviously high purchase intent. People were looking for that specific type of sofa. And at the time, like there was an Apartment Therapy blog post. I think it was Apartment Therapy that ranked. And there was another one I did on like deep seat sofas, which again, like Apartment Therapy ranked for. And The term I kind of coined the thing that I was looking for in the SERPs was what I'd call like throwaway content. So it was essentially a piece of content that ranks because of the site's authority, not necessarily because it's the best piece of content on a topic. So, things I look for is like, how old is it? For those two SERPs, like the top post was, I think, 1 to 2 years old. It was like under 1,000 words. They hadn't tested the products they were recommending firsthand. They hadn't spoken to any like experts, like furniture makers, interior designers, on what makes a good deep seat sofa, like what even is a deep seat sofa. It was just written by like one editor and published. So like there was a gap there to like create something that was better than what they had. And that was kind of what I was looking for in like those first pieces of content, was like, where are the SERPs where there might be publishers that would have way more authority than us, but like we can produce something that's better. And I think as well, like the thing I was thinking about back then, and like I still do now, because like, Living Cozy, like 330,000 pages or 350,000 pages a month, like it's not huge. It's still pretty small, especially in like the home space where like the Spruce gets like 30 million page views a month. Like those publishers aren't going to miss 500 visits a month. Like they're not even going to notice that someone's knocked them off the top spot there. So that was kind of my focus, was like, where can I take traffic from big publishers that they probably won't even notice and probably won't even care about?
Interesting. And hopefully won't respond. And
Yeah,
right. Cool. So your approach to I really like that, how you're choosing keywords to go after. Like that makes sense. Like picking gaps, like so smart. Did you okay, two things, I guess. Did you do it in like kind of clusters? Like did you pick a sofas and do all of it, or did you just go after those weak points in isolation, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think initially it was probably fairly scattered. Just kind of looking for the opportunities, like seeing what would rank, seeing where the gaps were, and then it kind of evolved into a focus on like sofas, which we still really focus on today. Also, outdoor furniture was one that we focused on quite early, and I think like one of my big learnings and like tips would just be to like niche down even further. So like obviously home is a ridiculously large niche. So really honing in on sofas meant that we were able to publish like, we've probably got like 50 to 75 guides about different types of sofas, like what color cushions go with different color sofas, all things like that now. And like that really helped with the kind of topical authority. And like now when I, plan out content, say recently we done a guide to reclining sofas. So we also worked on a guide alongside that for like the different types of reclining sofas. So I definitely like cluster now and then try and like niche down, because even within sofas there's so many like sub niches of like types of sofa, colors, materials, all of that. Like we've probably, we're like I say 220 blog posts in and probably barely scratched the surface on the topics that we cover.
I think that's the situation you really want to be in, right? But like endless opportunity for future growth.
Yeah, there's so much space for growth, and like I think as well, like there's just, for me it was focusing on, definitely the niche and like niching down into sofas, but then also initially the keywords that were going to drive the revenue, so that I could, maybe work with additional writers. I could afford to spend some money on growing the business. So I really wanted those like commercial keywords that would kind of, one, like prove to me fairly quickly whether or not there was a business here, whether there was space to grow and drive revenue, and then two, would give me that money to reinvest in scaling the business some more.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And that actually leads me on to like the next question I had, which was, okay, first of all, I guess your content, you mentioned that the gaps you're looking at was like they didn't test the product, they didn't speak to experts. Is that something that you do for every article?
It's pretty much I'd say from like the first few months, it was something that I wanted to do. So it was actually really challenging to start because I knew I wanted to speak to experts, but didn't know anyone in the space.
Yeah.
And I ended up going through like, initially I'd go through like house.com, which like lists tons of interior designers, and like I'd cold outreach them and said, would you like to be quoted in this specific guide? And like, honestly, that didn't really work too well. Then it was kind of like almost a slog until I had enough traffic to get accepted into like Harrow, so like help a reporter out. And I still use that like to this day. But
What's
yeah,
the traffic cap out of interest on?
I think it's like it used to be Alexa rankings, but I feel like they've shut that down now. It has to have like a certain traffic threshold on SimilarWeb now. I think it has to be in like the top million websites or
That's what I
that
remember.
ranking.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And then yeah, from there it's kind of like initially I had this technique I kind of called like layering the content, and it's something I want to get back to now because honestly, like I do slow myself down a lot by focusing on the experts.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of publish something, and then let's take like Sofa in a Box, for example. Like I would just find the 10 most recommended brands, write an article about them, link out to the brands and publish it. Then, the next level would be go back and like, can I get some expert quotes to talk about, what to look for in a sofa, like what features you want, what materials you should avoid, what materials you should go for. And then like the next level is, can I speak to anyone at these brands and just like get a quote from the founder of the brand about how they designed the sofa, what they thought about, like what the process was, why people should buy it. And then like the final level is like, can I get, a contributor to review this product firsthand? Like, can we get shipped to their home and get them to review it? Because like that's really important. I think for like, for the business to grow, like we need to review products firsthand. Like we need to be a trustworthy source, and that also helps for Google as well to see that we are reviewing products firsthand. So yeah, there was kind of adding in the layers, but now like the way I approach publishing is like research the keywords, and then from the keyword research, like look at what's ranking. Then I make a list of questions that we want to ask, and then I'll put that out on Harrow. I also have like an email list now of like, there's about 50 to 60 interior designers, furniture brands that we reach out to every month, and we'll just send them all the topics we're working on with the questions, and then like they'll respond, send over their thoughts. Then like those thoughts go into a brief, which is then kind of like, filter down into like H2s, what questions we answer where, put the expert quotes where they need to be, and then we pass it on to a writer to produce the content. It takes quite a bit of time, but it's something that we're like working on, like streamlining and automating at the moment. So we spent the last couple of months like working on an Airtable spreadsheet where we can put in all of the keywords, all the questions we want to ask. Then we get into the point where we can like automate emails to the experts that we work with, and their responses will be put back in the Airtable and hopefully like straight into a brief. But like we're kind of 80% there. But yeah, that's kind of the process.
I think I saw you mention in an interview that you used to make SaaS brands, and now you're like happy where you are because you're like content is your expertise place. Is that something you said, right? But
yeah,
what it makes me think of is the guys at Workello. I don't know if you've come across that product.
yeah.
Like they hacked something together in Airtable to hire writers at scale and then turned that into a SaaS product. So maybe this is your SaaS product one day.
Yeah, I think, like going back, like I've always wanted to kind of run my own business. Like since I was like 17, 18, I've been like trying to launch something, and it was always software. It was always like, I want to launch a software company. I want to run a software company, but I'm not a developer. I'm not a product manager. And it took me a long time to just kind of lean into what I actually know and like what my strengths are, and to produce, to start working on a business that actually matches my strengths, which should be really obvious, but was really hard.
I think everyone, including me, has to go through that, like all of those realizations, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
The one I'm going through at the moment is like, how do I outsource properly, or how do I scale properly? It's super tough, I think.
Yeah, it's like I still struggle with that as well. Yeah, I've tried to like outsource things like brief creation, and different parts of the process, and like never quite managed it in the way I want to. But I think like a lot of that was also just on me with not giving people what they need to produce everything. Because I didn't have like all of the standard operation procedures like written out. I hadn't documented how I do everything. And I think a lot of that was because I was working full time while running the business. Like I just didn't have time to focus on those things that are actually really important.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something that I'm still kind of wrestling with and working on is getting better at delegation.
Yeah. I think most content writers are going to have like their like sort of perfectionist part as well, and they know what is good content, and then it becomes really hard to like get from your brain what you want into someone else. I think
It's definitely challenging.
um so I wanted to ask you about scalability. I was interested about the content that you had said you created though. Does your stuff um does it get out of date quite quickly, or like quicker than it's not like not necessarily something that's like evergreen? Like how do you, am I wrong in that assumption, and also how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's definitely does get outdated because so much of it is product focused. Like quite often, brands might discontinue a certain product. Um, there's also like some furniture brands that will sell the same product for years, but they'll rename it something different every couple of years. So it's keeping on top of those things, like making sure there's no broken links or products you recommend that don't exist anymore. Um, that's definitely one challenge. And as well as like making sure that like pricing is still fairly accurate. So yeah, I try like every probably 2 or 3 months to go through like the top articles on the site and just kind of make sure that they are up to date. They're also like I kind of see them as like living pieces of content rather than something that you just like publish and leave forever. I think some of the informational keywords, like it's okay to do that. So like we published a piece a couple of weeks ago on like sectional versus sofa and just explaining what the difference between the two is, like when you might buy a sectional, when you might buy a sofa, like
Yeah.
that's not really going to change. Like the best modular sofas to buy in 2023 is probably different to the best sectional sofas to buy in 2020. But they are like the high, revenue keywords. So it's like worth investing in. And they're the ones that like all publishers want to rank for.
Yeah.
So I think like freshness is key. So it's kind of, for me, I'm like, go back and like, are there any products we can add in? Like I'm always trying to speak to brands to see if we can get products to review. And then like once we review them, we then link back to the review in the roundup articles, like put the pros and cons that we've experienced, like quote what the contributor said about living with the product. So yeah, they are kind of like constantly evolving. And I think like that's the way, it always has to be. Like actually yesterday downloaded a big old CSV of like all of the URLs across the site. And I'm kind of like gradually working my way through, just like noting down, what we could update, what needs to change, and hoping to kind of get everything refreshed throughout, like by the end of Q1, so that most of the content on the site is fairly up to date.
Nice. That's good. I guess the more you create, the more of a beast you have to manage.
Yeah, it is hard. Like there's some articles where I'm just like, yeah, I know that needs a refresh and I need to get around to it because I published it 2 years ago, and I might have tidied it up a couple of times, but I haven't given it a full refresh for a long time. And there's also, at the moment, like it's quite a turbulent time in the economy. Like there's brands that are, going out of business that we've featured on the site. There's products that are no longer available. There's like brands that maybe used to have affiliate programs but now don't, and like our links are broken. So it's just like constant tidying up that needs to be done to kind of make sure that we're not giving people a bad experience and like sending them to broken links or to check out products that no longer exist.
God, yeah, it's tough. I guess like your tools like Ahrefs and stuff helps spot some of that. Um,
Yeah, like Ahrefs is the one I probably spend the most time in.
yeah,
Just kind of like I always look at the calendar like every day to see what's gone up, what's gone down. Um,
did
it's yeah, it's dangerous to do, and like the other thing that like is often quite tough in like this niche is you're not just competing with like other publishers. So like there's the niche publishers, there's the big publishers, there's also e-commerce brands. And sometimes like Google will flip the SERP. So like sometimes it prefers to rank publishers at the top. Other times it will prefer to have an e-commerce company up there. So like I said, last month was like our record traffic month. This month in February, it looks like we'll probably end up being like 20% down on traffic, which like I mean it sucks. Like there's no, I'm not happy about it. But like I've spent the last few days like digging through the data, and like there's some stuff we can improve, there's posts we can update. But what's happened quite often is, there's different SERPs where publishers used to take up the top 4 spots, and now publishers take up the space from like 5th downwards. And there's nothing you can really do to get around that other than like have more content so these kind of changes don't impact you so much. Like if we had another 200 informational piece of content, like we probably wouldn't notice it so much. But for example, like the sofa in a box article I keep referencing, like that was ranking #1 for probably the best part of a year for the keyword sofa in a box, couch in a box. Now Amazon's #1 and we're #2, and it's just like there's it's in a way it's nice because it's like, okay, we're not doing anything wrong, like it just is what it is. But it's also kind of frustrating. You're like, there's nothing we can really do to get that traffic back other than hope that Google switches it back, which often it does. Like quite often like fluctuates and goes back and forth.
So is that e-commerce companies who are literally selling a sofa in a box?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So you quite often see it as well, like with any type of product search in the furniture space, there'll be a mix of publishers and e-commerce brands ranking in the top 10. And the way they're ordered just kind of constantly flips around. So sometimes publishers are #1, sometimes brands are #1. But the thing I always focus on is just like, are we in the cluster of publishers wherever they are? Like if the publishers are in spot 4 to 8, like are we in that 4 to 8 range somewhere? Like ideally we want to be top, but in most cases it's like, are we, around there where we need to be? And quite often we are. Like if we're not, then okay, like what do we need to do to get back there? Is what I think about. But yeah, it is challenging because you can kind of lose traffic and then just be like, there must be a fix, there must be something we can do. And yeah, I'm sure as I go through all of the articles, there will be some that will update and will move up. But yeah, quite a lot of it is just like the SERP's changing. So we had a post on the best different site like dining room table sizes, and that was ranking #1 for a long time, and it's now moved down, but it's still ranking #1. But Google's just put the like people also ask box above the #1 result now, so like traffic's gone down like 20% to that page. But yeah, you can't do anything about that.
I haven't seen the people also asked above that.
Yeah, it's the first time I've seen it. And I think there was like a rumored Google update on like February 3rd that like made a few minor changes. But yeah, I've not seen it go like above the first result before, but it seems to on that search. But I wonder if there's just some experimentation going on, and maybe it'll flip back in the next update.
I guess you can really see it is it quite a high volume keyword that?
Yeah, it is. Like it's probably one of the it's one of the top 10 traffic pages on our site. So yeah, there's a lot of people searching for it, and there's also like a lot of longer tail keywords that drive people to that page. Like people searching for like what size is a 4, 6, 8 person dining table. So yeah, there's a lot of traffic for that.
Interesting. It is quite frustrating when Google changes things so often. I think I wanted to ask you a bit later about how you think ChatGPT and AI will come into that conversation. But before we do, okay. So something that you mentioned was H2s. You said like you would get certain questions and like certain things, and like basically you would get experts to write the answers to certain H2s and like weigh in on certain things. Like what's your approach for choosing like what sections need to go in there and which ones need an expert opinion?
Yeah, so in terms of like planning out sections, like a lot of that happens at the brief stage, and I'll kind of look at like what the top 3 or 4 articles that rank, like what do they have in common? What does the top one have that the other 3 don't? Like if there's anything we can learn from that. And then quite often also like what is in that like people also ask box. Is there any way we could try and answer some of those questions as well within the article? So that's kind of where they come from. And then in terms of like when to get experts, I try with most questions to get like some expert input, because I think like no one really cares what like I think about where you should place a sofa in a living room, because like I'm not an interior designer. Like I shouldn't be giving that advice to anyone. So I'll want to try and get like an expert in there. Like you can easily go to like every other blog and you can see what they recommend, and it doesn't really change. Like there is, if we're talking about like sofa placement, there's probably like 4 or 5 standard placements that we could write a blog post about. But I like to then have like each of those placements or points backed up by an expert that says like why you should or shouldn't use that placement, like when it makes sense, when it doesn't. Because it just kind of gives some extra expertise and experience to that. Like, I've placed a sofa in my living room. Like, that's the only one I've placed, and I've placed it against the wall because that's where the space for it is. Like, that's not going to rank number 1 in Google, but an expert perspective will help. And like I think also just build trust with readers. They'll know that we've done our research, and they can trust what they see on the site.
Yeah, it's a lot more quality than most people starting a niche furniture brand would do, I guess. I would assume.
I think so. And I think like that's what you kind of need to do, I think, to like stand out. Like I don't think there's any point like replicating what's already out there in the SERPs. Like you need to add something new, or give people a reason to not just to like click on your links, but also give them a reason to stay like once they've clicked on the link.
Yeah, it's just I think the only reason people don't do it really is it's a bit slower. Like I mean, how do you? What are some other ways? You mentioned some of the automations, but what are some other ways that you've kind of improved scalability over the time?
Yeah, so I think like one is definitely like working with freelance writers. Like as soon as the site was making enough revenue, I would work with freelance writers to increase the content output, because there's only so much that I can write every like week. And also like that was really important to me as well, because I was able to get freelancers that had bylines in places like Apartment Therapy and The Spruce. And I think that helps with, again, with like the kind of Google, like experience, expertise, authoritativeness, like that's really, really helpful. But then like, yeah, scaling, a lot of it is kind of what we're working on at the moment, and it's that like the Airtable that I mentioned, like keeping everything in there, because I have wasted a lot of hours like emailing an expert, them then sending their response to me, it sits in my inbox, then I have to like go through and copy it to the brief, and if you do that 10 times, you probably spend like 2-3 hours putting together a brief. gathering everything from your inbox, putting it in the right spot, like that's quite a painful process. So like now we're trying to like automate the emails that go out to the experts and like every week say like, here's the topics we're working on, here's how to send us responses, putting those all in one place so I don't have to like scan through my inbox to find them. Also like making sure that I don't miss responses, because like that's definitely happened in the past as well.
Do
So yeah,
you
just
do you use Airtable's form to like say, can you answer this question in this form, or do you use like Zapier to like connect those things?
yeah, so we use Zapier and then like Webflow. So we'll have like Airtable is where like the questions and like what we want to know is housed. Then Airtable with Zapier sends that to Webflow, creates a CMS item. Then we send out an expert that links to all of the CMS posts on Webflow. They can then click on the ones that are relevant, fill out a form, and then that Webflow form gets sent back to Airtable through Zapier. Like it's yeah, it's really smart automations. Like if I'm honest, like I didn't fully work on it, so it went a little bit above my head, but yeah, it's really good.
Just so I can get that cleared, like, so this does sound really smart. It's cool that you're using Webflow too. So you would write the questions that you wanted in Airtable, and it would create like a form automatically on Webflow, which would
Yeah, so yeah, so like what we've built, like I can talk like end to end, like what the process is. So
yeah, well, I think
I used to, and I still do, like we literally only launched this like a week ago. But like my normal process was I've got a list of like 50 to 60 experts that I email every month, and I would send them a Google Sheet with all the topics we were covering, the questions, and the deadlines when to send me responses. They would send me their responses throughout the month, and I would then like go through and add their responses to the relevant brief, and then like get the brief ready to send to a writer. That was kind of difficult because like I would manually email every expert each month because I hadn't asked them to opt into an email list. Like I've kind of got personal relationships with a lot of them. Then the responses would come in at different times of the month. Sometimes I would add them to the brief straight away. Other times I would let them sit in my inbox for a couple of weeks and do it all at the end of the month. And it's a really worthwhile process, but it was a real pain. So now we have an Airtable that has all of the keywords that we want to target. Those keywords are then grouped together into blog posts or articles. Then within each article, we then have the questions that we want answered by experts. And those questions, the article title, the deadline, get sent over from Airtable to the Webflow CMS. And then on the Webflow CMS, there's a form that has like space for the expert's response, space to share like a link to any images they'd like us to use, and space for their email address so we can like attribute it to them. And then when they fill out that form and submit it, the Webflow form sends it to Zapier, sends it back to Airtable, and like it's attached to that blog post in Airtable. So like now I should, like in theory, when I next go to create briefs, I'll be able to just go to Airtable, click on the post, and it will have like the 5 or 6 expert quotes that we want to include in it, like already saved there. But yeah, we've been working on it for probably like the last 5 or 6 weeks to get it to work. And yeah, like we just started, like we sent out our first email to people Monday, and we've got like our first 4 or 5 responses in. So it's very early days, but yeah, I'm hoping that's going to speed things up a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just just to automate it, and so it's off your plate and not in your inbox and not something you have to do. Like it's so cool.
Yeah, it's really good.
I mean, you should do a blog post on how to make that, maybe.
Yeah, once it's like been up and running for a few months and definitely works, yeah, I'll have to share how it goes.
Cool. Okay, so I think just I'm aware of time. Like one of the last few things I wanted to ask about was link building. I think I read that you do like PR campaigns, and also that um, you did some like outreach, I think, at certain points, like pitching, well, I guess talking to brands and asking them for links. Would you just, yeah, give us a quick rundown of maybe like how important that's been and what you've done?
Yeah, so I think to start out with, like I'll say like I don't enjoy link building. I don't know if many people do, but I certainly don't. And I don't like, now I get probably like 10 emails a day from people asking to publish guest posts on my site. I didn't want to be one of those people because like I just don't know how it ever works, to be honest. So my initial approach, like when I had like zero budget to invest in links and zero like authority, was to produce interviews with people from brands. And like that was this, so like this was a key part of the content strategy anyway, just to interview the founders and people that work at the brands that we talk about, because it gives us extra information and also like exclusive stuff that you don't get on other sites.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of why we done the interviews, because then like, say we speak to the founder of like Floyd, which is a furniture brand in the US, we can then reference that interview whenever we talk about Floyd and say like, here's what Floyd co-founder Kyle Hoff said about this product, and click here to read the interview. And like I wanted to do that anyway, but I prioritized sites that had press pages. So like quite often in the footer, you'll see like links to press or a press page.
Yeah.
And the brands that had those were the first ones that I would reach out to and prioritize, because once we'd produced the interview, I could then go back and say like, does this fit with your press page? Can we have a link? And then we'd get like very relevant links from brands in our space. Like often they have quite high domain authority because they've been around for a few years. They have lots of links. So yeah, that was the initial approach. And then yeah, to scale link building, like once there was budget to do it, I started investing in digital PR. So we work with a PR agency called Digital Loft. They're based in the UK, and I think we've probably been working with them for over a year now. But what they do is put together like reports and PR campaigns that are like highly shareable and link worthy. So for example, like they'll put together like, let's say like interior design trends, like what interior design styles are people searching for more this year than last year, and then they'll send that out to all of the like publishers in the home space, relevant news websites, things like that, to then kind of generate backlinks back to the website. So yeah, that's probably not the best explanation of digital PR you'll ever hear, but it works really well, and it's kind of been pretty key, I think, in like growing the authority of Living Cozy, and also getting high quality links. So we've been linked to by, I would say, pretty much every like other big publisher in the home space.
Nice.
Yeah, like Apartment Therapy, Domino, Better Homes and Gardens, Architectural Digest. Like we've had backlinks from all of them.
That's key.
And I hope that like really, I think that's played a really key part in our growth.
That's cool. I guess I got a bit lost reading their website then. It's really nice actually. Digital Loft, right? Yeah. We did actually I did an interview on this podcast a while back, well, a few months back, about digital PR. So if people are interested in learning more, like trying to, something you could possibly do on your own, but it's time consuming.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like it is something that, like if you don't have budget, I think you can probably figure out on your own. I think it definitely takes time to get all of the contacts you need, but it is kind of worth testing out if you're looking to grow your links.
I think the PR agencies I've talked to have like huge databases, or they tap into like tools that they pay for and things. So that's obviously a big advantage if you are one of those. Okay, so you mentioned the kind of, okay, second to last question. You mentioned about monetization, moving if you can, away from affiliates a little bit towards a bit of a 50-50 ad revenue. Why is that?
So I think for me, like it's not a lot of it is like moving away from being so reliant on like one source. Like I've always been probably overly cautious with things like this. Like for most of my career, when I've had a full-time job, I've freelanced on the side. And I don't like kind of relying on like one source of income. So yeah, I think like part of that is just like diversification. If say a big brand that we work with was to stop their affiliate program, we're far less impacted if we have 50% of our revenue coming from ads. And I would say like it's not necessarily like all focused on can we split 50-50 like ads and affiliate. It's like can we make affiliate a smaller and smaller percentage of revenue every year. So it might be like, we want to focus heavily on growing a newsletter this year and to diversify away from Google traffic a little bit. And then we can do direct sales within the newsletter and sponsorships in the newsletter. Is there memberships or like paid subscriptions that we can offer? I think like part of my focus is just like diversification. So like diversifying revenue streams as much as possible and diversifying traffic as much as possible. And like ad revenue is just like the lowest hanging fruit in there because it's like we're already on Mediavine. So the more pieces of content, informational pieces of content we can publish, the more traffic we get, and then the more we'll make from Mediavine, and like that will make an impact.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, cool. That makes a lot of sense. Diversification is key. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's hard. Like it's really difficult because it's like, if what you're doing is working, then keep doing it. And it's really hard to not, to switch away. But yeah, I think it is important to definitely like diversify as much as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, exactly. You don't want to spread your like if you're going from like for me, like most of my growth from social, I definitely want to grow the SEO of this, but doing both is insane amount of work. And then yeah, one's working. So yeah, it's a bit of a minefield, but if you do it full time, it's a bit better.
Yeah, it is a challenge.
What is if you had to say like one thing that was like the secret sauce of this success of like your traffic growth and everything, like what is that?
I would say, like experts would honestly be it. Like working with true experts across every piece of content and getting like firsthand reviews of products. Like that's key. Like if you're talking about a certain product or industry, like getting hands-on with, the key products, the things you talk about is really, really important. And like that's kind of where a lot of our growth, I think, has come from. Is actually focusing on like firsthand product experiences, getting quotes and input from experts that know what they're doing. Like that's been the key to our growth.
It's not, I feel like it's not only like especially important if you're reviewing products to get someone who like knows more about that product than the average person, but also like I feel like in home and furniture, you like it's prime for having like an expert in that area to talk to you. Like there is a whole kind of category of experts like interior designers who know their stuff, and ideally you would have them advising you on what to do here.
Yeah, definitely.
It sort of really matches the market.
Yeah, it's really important.
Okay, so what is 937? Final.
Yeah. So I think like on the diversification point, we're trying to diversify Living Cozy traffic sources and revenue. And another big part of that is to launch multiple sites. So under like 937 essentially is like a little media holding company that all of the brands will sit under. So we have Living Cozy. We just launched a couple of weeks ago interior-insider.com, which is going to be a more interior design focused site. It's like some of the content on Living Cozy started to veer into interior design. But I think its sweet spot really is like staying focused on furniture.
Mhm.
So yeah, we launched Interior Insider to be our like interior design focused site. And then next month we should be launching indoorplants.com, which is like an indoor plants focused website. So yeah, the plan is to kind of diversify um, the business just through like more sites and brands, and yeah, then like more traffic sources and revenue sources to all of those sites and brands.
So I can see that those three match really well together. Is indoor plants something you care about again, or are you gonna um, get experts on plants to weigh in on that?
Yeah, we'll try and get experts to weigh in. It's something like I've killed a lot of indoor plants in my life, so I'm hoping I
Same.
can learn from it. But yeah, it's something like we'll probably, that like layered approach that I spoke about earlier. We've got like the first 150 articles planned out and you know being produced. We probably won't have expert input on those, but as soon as they go live, we'll probably be starting to look to like add the layers and add in the expert input. Because yeah, I think it's just a standout piece.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's amazing. Congrats. Thanks for sharing your story, and people should go check out your websites. Living Cozy, definitely. I'll do a tear down of it a little bit in more in depth in the like premium community, and kind of share what content you're creating and show some of those expert quotes, etc., and um, show people what you're doing. But yeah, thank you again so much. It's been great.
Yeah, my pleasure. Like, thanks for having me on, Ben, and really appreciate it.
Cool.
Cheers.